This granny square is the easiest square that you can learn to crochet as a beginner. It's made of a stitch called linen, or sometimes called moss stitch, and it's only made up of single crochets and chains. So let's learn how to make this easy granny square. To start your square, make a magic ring using your preferred method. My preferred method is the double magic ring, so that's what I'll demonstrate here. I have a separate tutorial for it that I'll link up in the top corner if you need to see it slower. So I wrap the yarn tail around my first finger 3 times like this, then I hold my middle finger next to my first finger to hold those yarn wraps in place. Then I take my crochet hook and put it under the first 2 wraps and grab the third wrap with my hook and pull that third wrap underneath both of those other wraps. I then gently remove all of that yarn from my finger. So as you can see, we've got a loop of yarn here that's made up of 2 different strands, and this is our double magic ring. It's more secure than a normal magic ring. So to start round 1, make a chain of 1. This does not count as a stitch. Now work a single crochet into the magic ring around both of those strands of yarn. So my hook's going in here to make a single crochet. Then chain 2, 1, 2, then work another single crochet back into that magic ring. Then make a chain of 2, 1, 2, then a single crochet back into that magic ring. And then again a chain of 2 and a single crochet into that magic ring. That was our last single crochet of the round. Now work 2 more chains. As you can see, the centre of our square has a big hole at the centre of it, and to close up a double magic ring it takes an extra step than a normal magic ring. If we have a look at those 2 strands that make up the magic ring, watch them as I pull on this yarn tail. I'm not pulling this really hard, I'm just pulling it gently. One of these strands of yarn will start to tighten. So, pulling it here, and as you can see, this is the strand that started to tighten, this one here. So I'm going to now pull that strand and that will tighten that second strand. So if I pull here, you can see that that strand is now tightening. To get rid of this big baggy loop, pull on this yarn tail. And as you can see, we've now completely closed up the hole at the centre of the square. To finish off round 1, work a slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet that we made, so in that stitch there. Then cut your yarn and fasten off, because we're going to be changing colours. If you're wanting to make this square in one colour, I'll show you how to continue up into the rounds at this timestamp here, so skip ahead to that to see how we transfer up into the next round in one colour. But for now, we're going to be changing colours at the start of every round. So I've chained 1 ready to fasten off, and I've cut my yarn to have about a 6-inch tail. Then I'm going to pull that tail through that chain 1 and give it a little tug to tighten it up. And that is that colour fastened off, and hopefully you can see here we've got this teeny tiny square. We've got 4 single crochets and 4 chain 2 corner spaces. So let's move on to round 2. So for round 2, we're going to be joining in another colour, but before we do that, we need to actually turn our work over. I would recommend, if you're a beginner crocheter and you struggle to know the right and the wrong side of your stitches, I'd recommend taking a stitch marker and popping it through one of these stitches on the right side of the square, and that will kind of let you know which is the front of your square, because that's the side that's got the marker in it, and then on the back you don't have a marker. So it's just an easy way of telling which side is the right and wrong side of your square. So we're going to be turning our work at the end of every round. That's because crochet stitches are wonky, they lean slightly to one side. So if you get these leaning stitches and you do lots and lots of rounds that all slightly lean to one side, all from the right side of the work, you end up with a skewed square. I'll put a picture on the screen now of what a skewed square looks like. You can see how the centre is slightly rotated and the straight edges of the square aren't straight, they're actually slightly wavy. So to counteract this, if we turn our work at the end of every round and work every other round from the back, our wonky stitches actually end up evening each other out to keep our square nice and straight. That's why I recommend with some granny square patterns you turn at the end of the round, including this square pattern. So I'm going to turn my work over, so I'm making sure I'm on the side without the stitch mark, and then I'm going to put my crochet hook into one of these chain 2 corner spaces. It doesn't really matter which of the chain 2 spaces you choose. I prefer to go for the one opposite where I just fastened off. So I just fastened off down here and I've got a long tail here. So I'm going to go in this one opposite up here just because it's easier for when I come to weave my ends in. So I've just gone into that corner space. I'm then going to take my next colour of yarn and lay it across my crochet hook. I'm then going to pull up a loop from nowhere with my hook. So I'm going to use my hook to pull up a loop through that chain 2 space. I then like to hold my yarn tail next to where I'm about to crochet so I can weave my end in as I go. I can crochet over the top of it. I'll show you how we do that. So I'm just holding my tail here. So now to start round 2, chain 1, that does not count as a stitch. Then work a single crochet back into that chain 2 corner space. We only ever work out of the chain spaces with linen stitch. We never work into the top of these single crochets, only ever into chain spaces. Next, chain 1. Then work a single crochet into the next corner space. So I'm skipping this single crochet here and doing a single crochet into the next corner space. I'm then going to make a corner space of chain 2. 1, 2. Then work a single crochet back into that same corner space. So that is a corner group. Our corner groups in this square pattern are single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. Next, chain 1 and skip the next stitch. Next, work a corner group into the next chain 2 space. So I'm going to make a single crochet into this chain 2 space here. Then chain 2, then a single crochet back into that same corner space. And that's my corner group done of single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. Then chain 1, skip the next stitch, so that next single crochet, and make a corner group into the next chain 2 space, so in this corner space here. So a single crochet, chain 2, and then a single crochet back into that same corner space. Next, chain 1, skip the next stitch and work a single crochet into the next chain 2 space, which is the same one that we joined our yarn in here. So we've made it back to the start of the round. To finish off the round, make a chain of 2, slip stitch into the top of the next stitch, and then fasten off by chaining 1, cutting your yarn tail to about 6 inches. Use your crochet hook to pull that tail through that final chain and give it a tug to fasten off. So that is the second round of our square finished. So let's have a little look at what we've made so far. So on that first round you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochets. On this round we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 single crochets. So every round that you make in this pattern you'll have 4 more single crochets. So in the next round you're going to have 12 single crochets. In the round after that you're going to have 16. So it's always a multiple of 4, so it's quite easy to count your stitches to check you're on the right track. So because this square is quite small and fiddly, you can sometimes lose where those corner spaces are. So if you are a beginner and you're struggling to work out your corner spaces, use stitch markers to put into those corner spaces. As a beginner, stitch markers are your best friend. So we're now going to move on to round 3. For round 3, first turn your square over so we're working from the right side again. So on even rows you're working from the wrong side, and from odd rows you're working from the right side. We've got a lot of tails here at the minute, so you might want to weave your tails in as you go, but for now I'm going to leave mine dangling. So for round 3, pick any chain 2 corner space and we're going to join our yarn just like we did at the beginning of round 2. I'm going to choose this chain 2 space. It doesn't really matter what one you choose, and I'm going to put my hook into it. and I'm going to join my next colour of yarn. So I'm going to lay my yarn tail across my hook just like we did previously, and then pull up a loop of that new colour. I'm going to move my tail over so it's out the way, and then we're ready to start crocheting round 3. So to start round 3, work a chain of 1. This does not count as a stitch. Now work a single crochet back into that same corner space. Now we're going to work across this side of the square, and this is kind of the same as your square gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Sort of every round is pretty much the same, just with an extra stitch in. So chain 1, skip the next stitch and work a single crochet into the chain 1 space. Then chain 1, skip the next single crochet, and we've made it to a corner chain 2 space, and in your corner chain 2 spaces you always make that corner group that we made in round 2. So that single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. I'm going to work that into this corner space. There's my first single crochet and a chain 2, and then a second single crochet back into that corner space. Then we're going to work across this side of the square, so chain 1, skip the next stitch and work a single crochet into that space. Then chain 1, skip a stitch, and if your next space is a corner space, you work a corner group. So that's kind of the formula as our square goes, is if your next space is a chain 1, you work 1 single crochet into it. If your next space is a chain 2 corner space, you work a corner group into it. So that corner group of 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 single crochet. And you're going to repeat this all the way around your square until you end up back at that first corner where we joined our yarn. And I'll meet you there and I'll show you how we transition up into round 4. And I'm going to stick with this orange colour for that, so I can show you how we would work this square in just 1 colour. So I've made it to the end of round 3, and I've stopped just after my final single crochet back into that corner space to finish off that corner group here. But I've not done my chain 2 and my slip stitch like we've done previously, because I want to show you how we transition up whilst we use the same colour. So if you've watched my granny square tutorials before, this is the exact same technique that I use in those tutorials. So work 1 chain only, not 2 chains, and then work a single crochet into the top of that single crochet that we started with here. That single crochet that we've just made does not count as a single crochet. It actually counts as the second chain of this chain 2 corner. So we're going to pretend that is a chain 2. So for round 4, we're going to start with a chain of 1, and then we're going to turn our work over to work from the other side. So we're still rotating our work, turning it over to work from the other side at the end of every round, even if we're using a different colour every round or if we're using the same colour throughout. So next, work a single crochet into that corner space that's made up of a chain 1 and a single crochet. So I'm going in here to make a single crochet. And then we're going to repeat the same steps as with round 3. So our next stitch is a single crochet, so we chain 1 and skip it. Our next stitch is a chain 1 space, so we work a single crochet into it. The next stitch is a single crochet, so we chain 1 and we skip it. The next stitch is a chain 1 space, so we work a single crochet into it. The next stitch is a single crochet, so chain 1 and skip it. And then our next stitch is actually our chain 2 corner space. So just like the other rounds, we work a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, corner group. And we're actually going to repeat this all the way around, and this is the same formula that you use whatever size your square gets. I've seen people make really large blankets of just 1 square as they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So here is the square that I made up just to sort of show you what that looks like as we increase our stitch count. So this formula just works. It doesn't matter whether you're on row 200, row 10 or row 4. It always works, that formula of if the next stitch is a single crochet, then chain 1 and skip it. If the next stitch is a chain 1 space, work a single crochet into it, and if it's a corner space, you work that corner group. And then you can decide whether you want to change colours every round, just like I did here, or use the same colour for the whole square. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, give it a thumbs up, and I'll pop up a tutorial on the screen now that actually uses this same stitch in rows to make a really easy beginner friendly scarf. So I hope you enjoy that tutorial as well. I'll see you next time.